Hi. Thank you for attending today's reading. Let's begin. Vamos. Vamos Argentina 9 comments share save hide report 99% upvoted. End of story. Next story. I was groomed at the age of 12 to 16. 10 comments share save hide report 99% upvoted. End of story. Next story. Some old lady slut shammed me on the bus when I was in my school uniform happened a week or two ago. I was on my bus watching BoJack Horseman. Then an old lady just said to me, have some self-respect and cover up. I'm turning 15 and it was after school. My walk home I was crying to my friend on saying, how could someone say that to me, etc. I'm no longer upset by it and I'm much better and tbh I feel a lot better and sluttier. End of story. Next story. My brother got pissed off at me and sent me upstairs when I replied no to cheese on my burger. I've always looked up to my brother and saw him as a role model as a kid, as most of what I know now is because of him. Recently, he's been having his girlfriend over, which has made him antsy about the house and its condition. They go out almost every day and since my parents are working, I don't get a chance to hang out with my friends. He's been complaining about unwashed dishes and me constantly on the computer playing games. I can't really do much as school just started today and I've only ever been out once since the New Year's break. Today he was making burgers and complained when I didn't wash the bowl and pot from the previous day when I had popcorn. I told him I forgot and he told me bullshit when I genuinely forgot. He began ranting how I barely help out in the house, but when I do it's as if he turns a blind eye. Later, he asked me if I wanted cheese in my burger and when I replied no. He said he was sick of my BS and told me to go upstairs and come down when I think it's ready cause he won't call me. I didn't want any problems so I just left and here I am. Perhaps it was a weak no. Oh well. End of story. Next story. I am the less loved sibling. Sorry, this is a hard read. I've gone my entire life trying fit puzzle pieces as to why I was always treated differently. I grew up with a single mom. And my younger brother who is 3 years younger than me. My mom had always had a revolving door of boyfriends throughout my life. Some living with us. Some not. When I was around 10 years old, my family made a big road trip to see my dad. He lived in the South. We got there, and it was as if Dad wanted nothing to do with me. I tried showing off as typical kids do. Showing him how good I was at basketball already or chess or whatever. He was not interested. He was however interested in my younger brother. I was too young at the time to put 2 and 2 together. I just figured he was worn out. Fast forward to age 13. Dad dies from a heroin overdose. I was the angstiest teenager alive. The only memory I have of Dad was playing Mega Man on the NES and in awe of how good his hand-eye coordination was compared to mine. When I was around 5 or 6. So as kids do. I hyper-attached to video games growing up. This was all I had of my dad. It also functions as a way to tune life out. I always felt like I got the short end of the stick. In regards to everything. I had to do more chores than my brother. I got punished more. When I got punished, the punishment was harder. Everything I got was a hand-me-down. When my brother would get new shit, people would say it's because I'm the older brother, and that's just how it is. But not to the extent that I was actually treated. Fast forward again. I'm 19 and move out of my mom's house. This is why I use Dad in quotations. After moving out and changing my address, I got a letter from a man, Jerry, in a maximum security prison, stating he was my father. He wants to be a part of my life, etc. I confronted my mom about it, and it was as if she always knew. She never got a DNA test for me, but she always knew I was Jerry's. Jerry and Dad were best friends in high school. My mom had cheated on Dad with Jerry at some point and they broke up. They got back together and had my younger brother. Jerry went to the military, where he got a dishonorable discharge for violence. My only memory of Jerry was him showing me his guns when I was around 4. Dressed in full army fatigues. He just showed up at our apartment and my mom acted like he was just a crazy man. Jerry later went on to murder a few people with that same AK-47 in the 90s. He was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic with illusions of grandeur. Multiple life sentences in prison. My mom showed me the newspaper clipping. My mom told me she chose Dad as my dad because Jerry was a mistake and he is the worse of the two. She loved Dad, and even though he died of an overdose, he's still the better father figure. And that she only regrets how I found out. She said she was going to tell me. I was fucking 19 years old. So when I am an adult now and now understand that I was treated the way I was because of who my father is. I'm 34 now, married with a 2-year-old son. I took a 23andMe test and matched with all of Jerry's relatives. So this is a for sure thing. I know schizophrenia is hereditary, so I will always keep that in the back of my mind. My son could possibly have it. I want to be in my son's life like my two fathers both weren't. As far as being the less loved sibling, I am coming to terms with it now. I still am the less loved sibling. Even if my mom tries to pretend like I'm not. But I don't hold any grudges. End of story. Next story. My ex owes me $10,193.30. My ex owes me $10,193.30. Like the title says, my ex owes me $10,193.30. Now that I have your attention, I have always wanted to and felt I needed to share my story and hope that it some way, somehow, helps someone else. In 2018, I began seeing someone I worked with. He was much older than me. But I didn't care about the age gap. The connection between us was undeniable. It was one of those relationships that happened by mistake and completely unforced. It was so natural. We would talk mostly work-related, but in August of 2018, following the suicide of his brother, we were suddenly talking on a more personal level. Come September and October, we were talking every single day. Phone calls, texts, all of it. We made several plans that fell through due to him working at the police department. Deaths in the family, etc. You name it. It ruined our plans at least once. I'm an understanding person and I get that life happens, so I would usually just let these things go. I can't say I never got discouraged or even slightly suspicious. Like, how was it that legitimately every single time we had plans, something came up? If it's meant to be, it will be, I kept telling myself. The way I felt was undeniable. I had to just go with the flow if I wanted this to work out. Life happens, right? Finally, in mid-October, I got to see him for the first time since June. I brought a vehicle up to him for work and met him at the warehouse he worked at in our company, and we just talked for 2 hours. It wasn't a date and it wasn't romantic, but it felt good. I felt like I was at home. The conversation was natural and it flowed, and there was never an awkward silence. He told me how his first wife cheated on him and his second wife was awful to him. But he'd been single since 2016 and at this point he had almost given up. But then I came around. I changed his outlook. He kissed me goodbye, and for the entire ride home, I couldn't wipe the smile off of my face. No relationship I'd been in previously came even remotely close to how this felt. This was it. Fast forward to the end of the year. By this time, we were in a relationship. He had lost his nephew to suicide as he hadn't been handling the death of his father well. My ex's brother who had previously passed. And he had quit his job at the company we worked for. In the middle of all of these things, our plans to see each other were constantly cancelled because of his personal life as well as his demanding schedule at the police department and our job. I often had plans cancelled because his son needed him for something. Who was I to say no? His life was just so crazy. You can't make this shit up. But I was willing. I was willing and able to push through all of it. He wanted me and I wanted him. I was reminded on a daily basis that I was incredible. I made him realize he could love life again and that he couldn't wait to spend his life with me. So he asked me to move in with him. Was it too soon? A little. Did he live 2 hours away on the other side of the state? Yes. Did I do it anyway because I truly felt that he was it for me? Yes, I did. My last day in the corporate office of that company. The day before I was supposed to move. Something happened. His ex-wife had regained possession of their house. Even though he owned it. She had stolen cash receipts from when they had paid the taxes on the house, and it was now considered a marital home. He had not upheld a few parts of their divorce decree. He was in contempt and there was nothing we could do but fight her. He had a trust fund following the wrongful death of his father many years prior. He was prepared to pay her housing for a year instead of the 6 months she was being granted. He was going to buy her a new car like the decree stated, as well as her health insurance for a year. We were prepared to do just about anything. I moved out there anyway. Living in hotels. I couldn't let the owner of the company down, as he had moved me to the other location to assist and to keep me in the company. I was going out there to help, and that's what I was going to do. If it killed me. My ex was in touch with a lawyer his mother had used once before she passed and was using him to get his, now our, house back. We just wanted to go home. Because he was in contempt of his divorce decree and was unable to pay her right away due to the trust fund taking longer than expected to transfer the money. He had to go to jail. He was being held for contempt like a lawyer would. It started out with him only going on the weekends, and then he would be with me during the week. Still living in a hotel. We made the best of what we had. I would leave the warehouse at night and he would leave his job, and we'd come home to each other every night. Until the weekends came and I went home. And he went to jail. This went on for a while. There even came a point where he was in jail for 2 months straight and I didn't see him at all. I was on the emails with the lawyer and my ex begging him to do anything to help us through this. What did we need to do? What did I need to do? This put a huge strain on my relationship with my parents. I mistook concern for judgment and wouldn't send them updates. I stayed with an incredible friend of mine and her husband who took me in like the lost puppy I was. I am forever grateful and in their debt for all they did for me during this time. I ended up leaving my job at the company and got a new job up in that area. I reached a point where I stopped being able to afford hotels. My credit cards were maxed out. Both of my checking accounts were in the negative and my ex wasn't working due to him being in jail. So he was unable to assist me financially. I began commuting 2 hours to and from work every day. He assured me when his money came in from the trust we would pay off all of my debts. This made me feel better. My new boss caught wind of this and graciously invited me into her home and allowed me to stay in her guest bedroom quite often so I didn't have to commute. I kept her in the loop on everything. The most common question I was asked was, "How's Ryan doing?" Quote, "The only answer I ever had was a shrug and, I'm honestly not sure." People are probably thinking, he just casually went in and out of jail. That's not how jail works. How was I supposed to know? I've had 4 serious relationships before him and none of them ever went to jail. I've never been to jail. What did I know? I was getting bad vibes. I was questioning the legitimacy of everything. The deaths in his family. The court case we were involved in. Everything. Things weren't adding up. It didn't take me this long to get suspicious. I'd felt it on and off and each time I voiced it to him. He reassured me that it was all real. He had an answer for everything. A good one. Mid-April of 2019 I reached out to my ex's sister-in-law. The one that had been married to his brother that had commit suicide. I had to ask her if her husband was still alive. His Facebook page prompted me to ask this. He seemed to be alive. Pictures were being updated. People were commenting and not as though he had passed. She confirmed that he was alive. She confirmed that her son, my ex's nephew, was still alive. She told me my ex was still married. I didn't believe her. I denied anything she said about him being married. I didn't want to hear it. He wouldn't do that to me. I was hurt. I was furious. To be honest, I don't know why I didn't leave. Maybe because we had made it this far. How could I give up now? I now knew he'd lied. And he didn't have a good answer as to why. So why didn't I leave? My gut was screaming at me to leave. But my heart was set in stone. It was hard. And my trust levels were very low. But I stayed. I tried to make it work. How foolish. In May, I started working from home 2 days a week and went back to the company I loved part-time. I had previously tried to get in the door in my old position but due to the way I left abruptly, it was denied. So I was happy to be back even if I was just part-time and on call. This went on into July 2019. I hadn't seen my ex since mid-April. I was frustrated. I just wanted him out of jail and for us to go home. I wanted this nightmare over. The lawyer assured us that it would be over soon. That the last 7 months were hard but it would be over soon and he was doing everything he could. 3 weeks into July, I reached out to his sister-in-law again and I asked her if she could call me. I was ready to listen. I gave her my phone number and I waited. She agreed to call me. A week went by and nothing happened. No call. I was on my way back from Connecticut for my part-time job when she finally called. My heart fluttered with nothing but anxiety. But I answered. She reconfirmed that her husband and son were alive. I told her everything that was going on with my ex. I spilled everything. She told me it was all a lie. The trust fund wasn't real. The court case wasn't real. I was shaking. I causally mentioned something in passing about him being a police officer and she said, "Wait. Who is a police officer?" I paused and then said, "Well, supposedly Ryan." She kind of sighed and said no. He wasn't a police officer and that her husband was. But not my ex. Her son was never in New Hampshire in September like he supposedly was. Another reason for cancelled plans. It was all a lie. Everything. I knew things weren't right. But I didn't think it was going to be this bad. Not once did I think that literally everything was going to be a lie. I somehow managed to hold myself together until the end of the call. Barely. But as soon as we hung up, I just cried. I drove back to the office having a full-blown mental breakdown. I called my ex once I'd clocked out and confronted him. I told him I knew everything and that I'd talked to his sister-in-law and that no, I wasn't bluffing. I really knew everything. He finally spilled. Here I am in December. Here. Barely. But I'm here. He was never a police officer. His brother did not commit suicide. His nephew did not commit suicide. His trust fund was not real. The supposed court case was not real. He was still married and living with her the whole time. He was never in jail. He was the lawyer behind the emails. My entire life for 10 months was not real. I don't know if it's still considered cheating if I was the other woman. But it still hurts just as badly. He told his brother that he had an affair. All I was an affair. I was being used. I have filed and won a small claims case against him and he owes me $10,193.30. I will not stop until that debt has been paid back to me. Money isn't going to heal the severe emotional damage done. But it will at least alleviate the financial burden. I'm not here to get any pity from anyone. I made the choice to stay and ignore the red flags. So I hope someone out there reading this listens to their gut and does not ignore red flags. No matter what the situation is. Bad vibes are real and your body picks up on them. Listen to them. Do not make the same mistakes I did. I promise you. The fantasy, likely to not come true, in your head is not worth the heavy downfall when things go very wrong. I will heal from this someday. But it's going to be a while before that happens. Regardless of how he treated and felt for me. The love I had for him was, at the time, very real. Wrapping my head around the fact that someone I loved could do this to me hasn't been easy. Please do not ignore red flags and bad vibes. Please. I hope someone benefits from reading this. TL. Doctor. I dated a sociopath who lied about literally everything in our relationship and owes me a lot of money. End of story. That is all for today. If you want to support my automated channel, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. See you tomorrow.